This is Book 4, Chapter 24. Caesar attempts landing on the coast of Britannia. But the natives, with the plan of the Romans having been found out, with their horsemen and two-wheeled chariots having been sent forth, their horsemen and two-wheeled chariots, by which type, or just with which type, they were accustomed to use in battle often, the natives, having followed with the rest of their troops, prohibited nostros, our men, from egredi navibus, from jumping out of the boats. On account of these causes, on account of these things, there was the greatest difficulty. Because the boats, so this is difficulty number one, because the boats, on account of their size, were not able to be situated except for out on the deep water. However, with the soldiers and with the land not being known, and with their hands being weighed down by supplies and things like that, with them having been weighed down or oppressed by large and heavy burden of weapons, immediately there was a jumping down from the boats necessary. In other words, they ought to have jumped down from the boats. They were supposed to stand in the waves, and they were supposed to be fighting with the enemy. So all three of these gerundives are going with this erat. So just as a passive paraphrastic with Carthago delenda est, Carthage ought to be destroyed, here a jumping was necessary. So there's no specific subject. A jumping was necessary, a standing was necessary, and a fighting was necessary. So the easier way to translate that would be they had to. Okay, so immediately they had to jump down from their boats, and they had to stand in the waves, and they had to fight with the enemy. Okay, here's an out-out construction. So when they, where's the verb that goes with they? Okay. That's subjunctive. Okay. This little guy really shouldn't be here. Ah. It's still part of the same sentence. It's just a temporal clause. That's why it's subjunctive. Okay, my whole text changed. Sorry about that. Okay, so there was a lot of trouble for our men because they were hindered and were weighed down by so many things and had to jump into the water all at the same time when they, the enemy, when they were audacter, boldly throwing weapons or inciting or exciting our accustomed horses, accustomed, sorry, their accustomed horses, because of course, the natives' horses were used to the land and the beach and the terrain. So when the natives, either from dry land or having progressed out a little bit into the water, with all of their limbs having been lightened, in other words, not weighed down, with all of their land having been very well known, they boldly hurled weapons, and they excited their horses who were accustomed to the terrain. So our guys, because of these things, our guys, having been thoroughly frightened and and thoroughly unexpert, where is that? Yeah, and thoroughly unexpert in oh, and you're unexpert in some kind of genitive, so generis pugnae huius, entirely unexpert in fighting of this kind. We're using not the same harshness or sharpness or eagerness by which or with which they were accustomed to using in foot battle. So our poor guys don't know how to fight on the beach.